I've taken care of thousands of people who struggle with addiction, and I've had hundreds die. I don't even keep track anymore.
You gotta make good choices, and that's what they're teaching us here.
I don't think there's anything more difficult to do than sit through funerals full of 20 and 21-year-old kids.
America is in the midst of an opioid epidemic that shows no sign of slowing down.
Neighbors say they called 911 on this overdosed couple early Sunday morning.
The startling sight that greeted a West Side Milwaukee woman in March.
On a public bus outside of Philadelphia.
I'm in the town of Greenfield, Massachusetts. Nestled between mountains and valleys, this town of 17,000 is picturesque and quaint, but like many communities, it has been gripped by the opioid epidemic. But they've taken some innovative approaches to help fix this problem, and it all starts at their local jail. Tell me about what opioids have done to this community.
Opioids came into our community and started killing young people, and I think that was the greatest impact that it had on me personally, and why I devoted myself to forming this task force to try to educate young people to stay away from this and to try to treat the people who had already been sucked in by it.
You have an interesting term that you refer to the jail as. It's not just a jail.
Yeah. We're a locked treatment facility.
When did you start calling it that?
When we had gentlemen going to court in front of a judge and saying, don't sentence me to 30 days, judge, sentence me to 6 months, because I need that kind of treatment at the Franklin County House of Correction. That's when I knew we were a locked treatment facility.
This facility holds 225 incarcerated people. 90% of those incarcerated here have a diagnosed substance use disorder or mental disorder. I'm going to meet an individual who is housed here right now who has struggled with substance use disorder in the past, including opioid use. He's going to tell us his story. What's going on, Mike? How's it going?
How are you?
Nice to meet you. So is this the kind of common area right here?
Yeah, this is where we live. There's 71 of us, I believe. There's double bunked cells. I'm in a single cell up there. I live in cell 20. There's 36 cells. I'm an artist, I do art. I do tattoos now, it's pretty good. So.
What led you to be here?
I've got a year here for a violation of probation. I got some other matters that are still in court. I've done a lot of time. I've done about 16 years.
And how old are you?
And I'm 40 now. I'll be 40 in 2 weeks.
So almost half of your life?
Yeah, almost half of my life, yeah.
Now I'm heading into the jail's mindfulness-based therapy session, which is intended to help people deal with all of the issues surrounding substance abuse.
Allow yourself to kind of move to get yourself into that kind of neutral position. In your mind's eye, I want you to pull out a picture. And in this picture is someone you adore.
What role did drugs play in all this?
It started with Percocets. It just progressed, from Percocets into heroin. At the time that I had started doing heroin, I was homeless, I was living in the woods. And the first time I did it, it was like, all of that stress and all of that frustration and anger that I had towards my life, that kind of went away.
Mike, would you like to start? What showed up for you as we went through this exercise?
I started with a really good memory, then I went to pretty, somebody that I had cared about and missed. That got painful a little bit.
So the first part you noticed regarding someone you cared deeply with all your heart. And then you also noticed that emotions came along with that as well. We respond to this as if it's real. So the greater capacity we have to see the mind for what it is, to see emotions for what they are, they're not us, it's part of who we are, and to commit to those things that we do know move us in value directions. It's not terribly complicated. It's just tricky to do on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. And that's why we practice, right?
There's been such an evolution in the conversation around the country regarding the opioid epidemic. How has this community distinguished itself?
You've got to do things you otherwise would never do, because this is different than anything we've ever experienced before. So I'll point to one example. We started doing Suboxone here at the jail. You go to any correctional facility in the country, Suboxone is their #1 contraband.
Why would you give Suboxone? Why would you give some of these drugs that do the same thing that heroin might do?
We're not creating a group of people that are out there high. We're creating a dosage amount that allows you to live with your cravings and function productively. That's the goal. And you will be in treatment, you will be under supervision, but most importantly, we're removing you from the criminal behavior equation.
I had some of this.
That's why it tasted different.
They brought this into the kitchen and they served it with us at lunch.
Oh, they did? Do you remember what it's called?
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah,
I remember it was it's got a spice to it,
It's got
though.
a kick. Did you guys try this? Did you try that? It has a bit of a kick. Does anyone remember?
I forget the name of it.
Mizuna.
Mizuna, yep.
Yeah.
And tell me about the gardening program.
Yeah, the gardening program is really cool. It kind of gets you down into the earth a little bit. You can get out there and you can smell the plants. When you get connected to those plants, it makes you more conscious too. And that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a consciousness going on. And that is a scallion. Yeah, it's the onion shoot.
It tastes good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We're so used to doing the same things that it's really hard to change that behavior. So it's really cool that they're integrating a few different things for us to do that are outside of maybe our typical comfort zones. You know what I mean? And that helps you change behaviors, which is important. You know, my thinking is maturing.
On average, we have about 100 units of dopamine. And people who struggle with addiction wake up in the morning and they wake up with a dopamine level of 40 or 45. They're irritable, they are having physiologic withdrawal, and they feel miserable. And their brain is screaming at them, you know how to make this better. You know how to make this better. Go get it fixed, right?
When it comes to training these cadets, why is that important?
The average person doesn't understand what addiction does to the brain. I don't expect them to. Why would they know that? So when they learn about what it is that the people that get arrested go through, I actually think it builds for them a sense of empathy and understanding and of knowledge that it can allow them to actually provide better care for them.
And what is kind of a fundamental thing that everybody needs to understand about opioid addiction?
It breaks the brain in a very specific way, and it breaks the reward circuit of the brain, the part of the brain that tells you to live or die. And it's a disruption of the neurotransmitters in the brain, and it has very specific behaviors, compulsion and perseveration. I have to do this, and I cannot stop thinking about this. And it's a frustrating disease to treat. And you may get mad at your kid, may get mad at your niece, but I'm telling you, their brain is telling them that in order to survive, they have to continue to use the drug. We take care of people who struggle with addiction, and our job, quite honestly, is to make them better.
Can you explain and characterize where Greenfield and where this region is at right now in terms of the opioid epidemic?
So we're sitting in the most rural county in Massachusetts, Franklin County. I don't think the problem here is any worse than it is anywhere else. The truth is I travel all around the country. The problem is terrible everywhere.
In 2017, Franklin County saw a 60% reduction in overdose deaths compared to the year before. But this year, the region is experiencing an uptick in deaths due to the increased presence of fentanyl in street drugs, reflecting the ongoing struggle in this epidemic. I'm gonna meet a man named Sean who runs a farm and who houses people who are in recovery.
Right now we're just getting started. We have 3 residents who live here now. They all have chores that take place on the farm, whether it's feeding the goats or the pigs or whatever we have. And
what do you think it is about opioids that have such a grip on people and take such a toll?
I can only say from my personal experience. I will say that I craved drugs on a cellular level, no different than the instinct to breathe. That's what it felt like to me to want to use. So that's what we're up against.
Yeah, I think I want to walk with baby goats everywhere I go now.
Yeah, they're like the greatest dogs you'll ever meet. We have a cafe under construction where we'll be serving the products that we produce here. From seed to sandwich, it'll be worked by someone who's in recovery and has a need for employment, you know.
So this is the back-breaking labor that we do here. We're gonna feed these baby goats. They're about 2.5 months old. And as you can see, they love their warm milk. I suffered a work accident back in 2014 and was prescribed heavy narcotics, predominantly Percocet, heavy Percocet for that. My whole life fell apart after that. You're depending on a drug, becoming somebody who I think you never thought you'd become. It's heartbreaking.
When someone's working and they have a sense of purpose through the day, the chances of them staying sober in the long term increase tremendously.
I've learned through being here what it's like to care for another life. I came out here to get away from the environment that I was in, and this place kind of saved my life.
I have some goals, and instead of being manic and trying to manipulate my way towards those goals, I'm just trying to relax and just live.
You know, I believe everybody should have a chance to have a full life ahead of them, and that young people dying in the medical world ignoring it is unacceptable.
My hope for this community is that we get through this, that we continue to be stronger because of it, and making sure that the next generation doesn't have to deal with this.